See, Spelman actually scrapped all their college athletics and put all their money into health and nutrition because they noticed that so many black women were coming to school obese.
Well, this is a sort of a recent phenomena we've seen in our community. My mother went to Howard University, and she said when she graduated from Howard, nobody was overweight. Right. So in one generation, we've seen this whole change.
Right.
It could be a couple of things. One is the introduction of high fructose corn syrup into the American diet.
Into everything, right?
Into everything.
Professor Bart Hobel and his team of researchers gave a second group of rats access to regular sugar dissolved in water. The rats drinking the high fructose corn syrup mixture actually consumed fewer calories than those drinking water sweetened with real sugar. And even so,
you found that the rats consuming the high fructose corn syrup got significantly fatter.
Exactly. And this is what led us to believe that those two are not the same after all.
Who was the monster that extracted that stuff? I mean,
it's so bad.
When was that done? When did they figure out how to do that? I mean, they used to do cane sugar.
Well, high fructose corn syrup starts off as regular corn syrup, kind of like this. Then the corn refining industry uses enzymes derived from bacteria to convert much of the glucose here into fructose. Why? Because fructose tastes way sweeter than glucose does. Sweeteners of all kinds are expensive, and if food manufacturers use the high fructose stuff, they can make their products just as sweet for less money.
A flat stomach adds points to your SMV. Stop worrying about having a big old butt or big old boobs or big old legs. Get a flat stomach by doing it the right way. Drinking water, cutting out sugar, cutting out carbs, doing the abs and the crunches, and doing the cardio and doing the resistance training. No cheating.
And refined sugar usually is like a glucose it's 50% glucose and 50% fructose, and that's sucrose, and that's what's in table sugar. It's what's in a lot of refined sugars. What happens is that when you cleave the sucrose you cleave the sucrose to this glucose and the fructose itself doesn't get absorbed by all the cells. It only gets metabolized in the liver, and it does something that's called ATP trapping. So what it does is it traps ATP, which is the source of energy, and it does this because it's trying to do this whole other complicated enzymatic reaction, blah, 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 right? But what it does is trap the ATP, and this sends a signal through the vagal nerve to your brain, I don't have energy, and so you don't get satiated. And so when you eat refined sugars, it's ATP trapping, and it's something that is known to be a cause of why you can eat a bunch of fructose and refined sugar and not be satiated. And so you have to eat more because your brain thinks you haven't been fed. Whoa. Because the ATP's been trapped. It's called ATP trapping.
Wow. In 1960, the average height of the American female was 5'4". She weighed 123 pounds. The average American man was 5'9". He weighed 166 pounds. 60 years later, the average man was 5'9", and he weighed 168 pounds. The average woman had jumped up to 166. The black community, it's closer to 190.
And what we know for high fructose corn syrup with breast cancer is that people feel that may be also a trigger.
I see.
Yeah.
That's increasing your
potentially
likelihood.
Increasing your likelihood. Okay. And we tell women who have breast cancer or who have a family history at least to avoid the use of high fructose corn syrup. It's in everything. You just have to turn the bottle over. And again, sodas, have a high incidence of high fructose corn syrup. So we tell people to avoid that.
Why a lot of people that eat a lot of refined sugars with sucrose or high fructose corn syrup is the worst. When they eat that.
Why is high fructose corn syrup the worst?
Because then, when your gut, the way your gut, okay, let's compare table sugar, sucrose, to high fructose corn syrup. Both are bad. But when you compare the two, because sucrose it's got glucose, it's got glucose and fructose. High fructose corn syrup does too, it has more fructose. But the thing is that when the sucrose sees your gut has something in it called sucrases, which it takes, basically it's slower to cleave and digest the sugar, so it's not like a big bolus that your gut sees. So it's not as irritating on the gut because it has to first, the sucrases have to cleave the sucrose, and so like all this stuff is happening. Whereas when you get the high fructose corn syrup, that doesn't happen. It's a big bolus, and it's like it literally like causes a breakdown in your gut barrier. It's like irritant. It's an irritant. The same thing can happen if you take like too much of I mean, there's lots of other things that happen, but if you take too much like magnesium or something, people can get gut irritation. It's a big bolus on the gut and it's irritant. And that's what high fructose corn syrup does. And there's also then the whole ATP trapping thing is like exponential with high fructose corn syrup.
About the food that we're eating, that's a conspiracy all in itself because we've been fooled to think that processed food is our food. It is the silent killer. And we have all been sitting here saying, oh, this is what's good for us. This is what's good. How can you have a righteous thought when your food is unholy?
The Corn Refiners Association, which represents producers of the sweetener, knows it has a public perception issue and is trying to rebrand it as corn sugar.
I learned whether it's corn sugar or cane sugar, your body can't tell the difference. Sugar is sugar.
In addition to this multi-million-dollar ad campaign, the Corn Refiners Association has petitioned the FDA to use corn sugar on ingredient labels.
Because soda pop consumption, as innocuous as it seems, accounts for up to 40% of calories in some people's diets. So even something as simple as eliminating soda pop may dramatically alter this profile for women.
Denunciation of U.S. sugar policy. These are policies with historical roots in the earliest years of the country, when Southern sugar barons enslaved human beings and used the fruits of their toil to buy politicians. It is not a pretty history. This is Luann de Christopher. About 20 years ago, she found herself rushing her daughter to the hospital with blue lips. Awful asthma this little girl had. Really scary stuff.
You know, she had all these symptoms. We thought it might be food related. We took her to an allergist. The allergist said, eliminate corn. We did that. We had no results. When we eliminated anything with the word corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, was when we had our breakthrough. And it made no sense.
Indeed, what does sugar in your digestive system have to do with your lungs, right? And this happened just around the time when high fructose corn syrup production and consumption was peaking in the United States. It was everywhere and widely regarded as nutritionally indistinguishable from sucrose. But when Luann de Christopher's daughter stopped eating high fructose corn syrup, her lungs got better. Now, most parents would be perfectly satisfied and convinced by that purely anecdotal correlation. Not Luann.
So I returned to school, got a master's in biochemistry, molecular biology. I have collaborated with a nutritional epidemiologist, Dr. Tucker, at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. And with her, I've conducted numerous studies.
I want to stress, this is not work that is appearing in earthy, crunchy conspiracy theory blogs. This is appearing in peer-reviewed major scientific journals, findings that have since been reproduced by other research teams. This research shows that if you are a person who has trouble absorbing fructose, excess free fructose hangs around in your gut where it is highly reactive with other stuff in there.
It then goes on to interact with your proteins. It undergoes a reaction known as glycation. You form these immunogens. They're tiny. They are, can become absorbed in your systemic circulation, travel throughout all your tissues, and your lungs have a high concentration of these receptors that are mediators of asthma. And what do? They promote airway mucus hypersecretion. Your airways get filled with mucus.
Hence asthma, chronic bronchitis, and potentially other allergy-type symptoms other research has indicated.
You said there's a lot of people out here selling different products. The thing about that is that whatever product they're selling has to be herbal. Mm-hmm. So it's plant-based. We have doctors almost on every corner. Why shouldn't there be natural healers wanting to pop up and do the same thing and help people in the same? And the only difference is that it's really helping people. Mm-hmm. So, it's not to say, oh, they stuff is no good or they stuff is this. No, when you put in something that's viable in the body is electric. Mm-hmm. When we put food that's electric, it electrifies the body.